Good morning from sunny lockdown Netherlands. Good morning, goedemorgen für die Holländer. This presentation will be in English, but if you have questions I can answer in German too, if you want to, and Dutch of course. So, why Google hates my Apex application? And is that the case? Anyway, just a short introduction of myself. My name is Christian. Originally, I'm from Germany and started off my career as an Oracle developer in Frankfurt. Immigrated to the Netherlands in 1996, working for Oracle, and that was right about the first time I used the Oracle database to create web applications using the mod SQL. And that has been the red line in my working career for the next decades. Nowadays, I'm working for iAdvise as a managing partner, a small company in the Netherlands, providing Oracle Apex and Oracle Database consulting services. This timeline is missing one piece, and that's what most of this presentation is about, and that's a small service I provide as a free web service, which is called the Family Agenda. More about that in a second. So this is a fairly technical presentation. I won't promise to show no code at all, but there almost will be no code. It's more my journey in creating public-facing applications and all the environment around it to get this application out to the public. And I have to warn you, I'm going to show you a couple of statistics which include amounts of money. And I hope there is nobody from the Finanzamt, Belastingdienst, or RS in the United States, because I always cash these without paying any taxes for it. So please keep this quiet. So what is this all about? I created this agenda. Doesn't sound like a big deal. If you took a look at when I created this, that was 2009. Using the internet wasn't that common, especially in families as it is nowadays. My problem was when I was at work and I had to schedule a meeting or to attend a meeting somewhere. For example, in the evening, I couldn't see if there was anything planned with my kids at school or sports or anything family related. And because there were some conflicts now and then with my wife or my kids, we had that small written agenda at home, but of course I couldn't see that from my workspace at the office. She said, "You're in IT, think of something." And I came up with this online agenda system on the web. This is a look and feel of the current production version built with Apex. But I started off with, remember, it's 2009, with a PHP and MySQL version. Because Apex hosting just wasn't very commonly available for an affordable price. This is a free service, and yeah, I had to use the resources I could afford. So this is the old PHP user interface, lots of colors, and what I would like to emphasize is I used advertisements on the web page to get back some of the costs I had for hosting and stuff like that. This is a pure table-based layout, not responsive at all, and of course I'm an Oracle and Apex developer, so I should have done that in Apex, and I did. But first of all, here this was the infrastructure as I used it with the PHP and the MySQL. Very simple infrastructure. Used a hosting service called Strato, which should be quite familiar to the German listeners. And I wanted to get rid of this, especially because I really don't like the MySQL database. Once you're used to the Oracle database and all the functionality, and MySQL is just kind of a downgrade. So I wanted to switch to Apex, and that had an impact. Let's first of all have a look at the costs of an Apex environment that you could use for a public-facing application. And this was far before the free database tier and free Apex was available. So my infrastructure is a virtual private server, Windows, because I'm a Windows guy and not so much a command line guy. I still run the 11G XE database on that Windows machine. Apex 5.1 in the current production version, I really want to upgrade this, but I need some more testing if everything that's on that server, it's not only that service, is still working there. I use Tomcat, which is very easy to configure, very convenient to maintain. And of course, I use ODS. One important thing is you need to make sure your site is available through a secure protocol. Otherwise, Google will punish you in findability and in other ways. Let's have a look at the costs. So the virtual private server costs me about 20 euros a month. Additionally, €0 for the XE database, €0 for Apex. Tomcat is free, ODS is free, and the HTTPS certificates you can arrange for free too. What's not included in the costs is the time you have to spend to keep this environment up and running and to maintain it. So 20 euros a month, that's not bad. It's a small infrastructure, but well, we'll see if we can manage with this. Is it scalable? This is a 90-day range, and you see we have around about 12,000 Google users. So that's something different than users in your Apex application. 60,000 sessions. So I would say this is pretty scalable. Okay. One aspect I took a little bit more effort to work on was the user interface. Remember, this is still running on Apex 5.1. I started migrating the application to Apex when it was version 5.0, I think. So I think Apex has a great theme with universal themes. Universal theme is perfect. It contains all the components you need. It has everything out of the box, and it's perfect for Office applications because it's kind of, well, I wouldn't say boring, but it's very straightforward, and yeah. And the target audience I had wasn't a business user, but the target audience I had in mind is families. And I was looking for a more colorful and appealing user interface. So what I did, I took Universal Theme and added some Bootstrap components to Universal Theme. Just a couple of templates and the Bootstrap theme I bought on ThemeForest and integrated this in Universal Theme. So I have a different, somewhat more colorful look and feel, but still have all the capabilities of Apex and Universal Theme. So this presentation will give you an introduction to the services Google provides you as a webmaster, as a publisher of applications. And there are different tools Google offers. First of all, you can track statistics of your sites, usage, users, so you can find out who your target audience is, who are the actual users of your application, some demographics about them. You can promote your site so it is findable. I mean, if you have an application and nobody knows about it, what's the use of that application? And last but not least, you can make some money using Google. And I showed you the cost of my infrastructure. That's around about 20 euros a month. And the minimum goal for me is to get these costs returned from this service using Google. So just to give you an idea of the flow, how to work with those Google tools. First of all, you have to promote your site and give Google some information on your site. To do so, you use a sitemap. So you show Google how your website is built up in pages. Setting up your site and providing Google with information about your site should be enough to be somehow findable on the internet. But to enhance findability, you might want to think to start an Adwords campaign, which is very effective so you will be somewhere in the first 1 or 2 sponsored links, and if people look for relevant or related information. In this case, online agenda or family planner, something like that. The best way to promote your website is to find other webmasters to link to your site. Either we are exchanging links, I show your site, you show my site. Much better is to have blog posts or people referencing to your site on sites that are relevant and have a lot of visitors. This will increase your findability a lot. Once you're findable, you want to analyze how many people are visiting your page, where do they come from, how do they refer to your site, using search or coming from a blog or a link somewhere. So you can analyze this with Google Analytics. Once you're findable and people come to your site, you can earn some money. In my case, I use advertisements to on my site and hope people click on it. I didn't say that because if I promote, or if I ask people to click on advertisements, I get a punishment from Google. So I didn't say that. But if advertisement ads on my site are clicked on, I'll get a certain amount from Google. One warning, the more visitors you have, the more support you will have to deliver. So that's something I really underestimated, especially nowadays with all the GDPR rules in place. You need to provide some contact information. So if something doesn't work or doesn't work correctly the way users expect it, they will find you and you will have to answer them somehow. I mean, ignoring them will make them go away from your site. So don't underestimate this. So I had my PHP MySQL infrastructure and I wanted to move to Apex. And please keep in mind this date because it will show up in the statistics a couple of times and we will see some effects on the statistics and the working of the website and other statistics. So March 2018, that was the date of my Apex migration. I was earning some money, which I could use to cover the costs for the server. But after the migration, that was suddenly a lot less. So I was concerned. And to analyze this, we're going to have a look at a couple of tools provided by Google that I can use to look for reasons why my earnings went downstream. So this is the Google Search Console, formerly known as Webmaster Tools, which is telling you something about the findability of your site. We'll go into this in a bit more detail. Another tool from Google is Analytics. I think that's the most common one used by webmasters to analyze the statistics of your site. And you see here March 2018, and you already see a kind of attendance there. And we have AdSense, which is providing me with where I can set up my advertisements that I want to place on my website. And again here, March 2018, and suddenly something happened, and I was, yeah, kind of surprised what happened, and somehow I was, of course, disappointed because I didn't have that much income anymore. But first, let's have a look at the Google tools and how Google looks at my Apex application. So this is the actual application, and first let's have a look here. So this is the Google Search Console. I see some statistics here, performance, coverage, stuff like this. Let's first have a look at the performance. So performance says something about how good, how well can users find my website using the Search Console. And as you see here, this is a 30-day range. We see last 3 months, sorry. About 2,500 times my page came up in the search result, and about 240 people clicked on this, maybe interested in, oh, sorry, I'm showing you the wrong sites. This is, I have to show you this one. Better. So around about 27,000 times over the last 3 months, I was shown in the search result, and total clicks 1,800. Interesting is not only number of clicks, number of times I was shown in the result, but especially what is my position in the search result. And if I look at the position, especially if I order, now this is the number of clicks somehow related to the position. So this is a very obvious one because the name of the service is Family Agenda, the Family Agenda, the Family Agenda. So that's somebody looking very, very targeted for that website. But just look at this online agenda planner. It has been shown almost 1,000 times, 900 times, but on a very low position. I can analyze this by, of course, I want to see how many clicks, but let me see, where does my website perform well in terms of position? So online family agenda, well, still pretty high. Let's show a couple of more. Digital family agenda, online group agenda or group calendar. Nobody clicked on it, but it's pretty high in the search results. Family agenda. So there, most of the users can find my site pretty well. But that's not my main concern. If I look at the overview, and this is something which is more Apex related, I have submitted a sitemap. Sitemap basically shows the structure of your website. And you can submit this to Google. So Google knows how your page looks like, how your application looks like, which pages are in there. It's an XML document, and I will show you this XML document in a sec. Duplicate this, put it in there as a fixed file on my web server. So basically what is in that sitemap, hope you can see this, is I just publish a number of pages, the home page, the register page, an info page. So there are a couple of pages in this application. These are all, you see, these are mobile related, but these are the public pages my application has. We've got 4 pages here and another, well, let's say not more than 10 pages, but a number of pages. Looking at the sitemap, discovered URLs 10. Going back to the overview, coverage, how many valid pages are found? It's only 2. So there are only 2 valid pages found by the Google crawler. A crawler is basically a very simple automated browser that is looking at your website and following links. Crawlers don't execute JavaScript. They just analyze the textual structure of your page, and of course have some understanding of the document object model, the structure of your HTML, but usually don't execute any HTML. This is an interesting number. 267 pages excluded. My Apex application doesn't have that many pages. Clicking on this, I see there are a couple of redirects, or they don't crawl properly. So I get some reasons for these. Let's have a look, for example, on these. And you see, this is actually one and the same page each time. And what confuses Google obviously is the structure of the Apex URL. Each Apex URL looks different for Google. Even so, it's the same page because there is some session in here, and Google doesn't understand the Apex URL very well. We'll come back to that in a sec. Again, performance. There was no real difference in findability of my site changing on March 2018. What I did notice was that the usage of my site was somehow different, looking at the analytics. So using Google Analytics, I have a couple of reports and statistics at my hand to look at my site. So I can look at, let me see if I can switch this to English. No, it doesn't. Oh, this is my own dashboard, and I probably used the Dutch naming. This is for the last couple of days. We see last 30 days. Okay, some more in detail statistics, but that's over the last 30 days. Let's have a look at what kind of reports we have. We have reports about visits, usage, sessions, which is Google sessions, not Apex sessions, bounce percentage, which means people who visit your site and leave within a couple of seconds again. New visits versus returning visitors. This is actually live, current users, active users on the website and where they're from. Some statistics on where visitors come from, some statistics on what kind of technology they use, browser, network, device, that kind of stuff. But let's start with the basic statistics, visitors to my site. And I'll switch this to week, and I wanted to show you 2018. See 2018, and let's put this to January 2018 and make this December 31st, 2018. Apply. So this is March 2018, and you see a slight decrease. Well, let's make this 2017. That will provide a bit more insight. So you see a slight decrease of users in March. So from round about 1,700 users, Google users, tracked users, it goes down to around about 1,200 users. So there was a decrease in users. Maybe they didn't like the application that much anymore. But it's not really, it is significant, but not in a way that would worry me. The other statistics I have, because I had those advertisements, or I have these advertisements on my page, is how these were developing. And let's have a look at this. So this is the range January 2018 to December 2018. You see the total earnings for that year were 315 euros, which is well enough to pay for the infrastructure. Again, March, and I can show some events here, March 2018. This is when I switched to Apex. And what you see here, just let's go through these statistics one by one. Page views went down quite significantly. But that is, apart from that there have been less visitors, this is explainable because I'm using a different technology. I have this calendar, and before that, in the old version, it would refresh the entire page, and in the Apex application, I use the full calendar, and that's just Ajax requests in the background. The page doesn't get refreshed, so it's not a new page view. statistically seen for Google. So I can live with that. Impressions. Impressions means the impressions of ads on my site. And to give you an impression of those ads, and let me see, these are the ads. I put it on there. These are from Google. So if I log in, no, that's not the correct login. Remember me, log in. You see, this is the agenda function, and again, the advertisements from Google. So let me see if I could show you some example data. Yeah. So in the old application, if I would click to the next week here, that would be an entire page refresh. And in Apex, this is just an Ajax request in the background. Only if I click on a certain appointment and make changes, that is when the page change actually occurs. And here you see another problem I have with Google. It's not always showing the advertisements. And that's new to the Apex application as well. I still don't know why exactly. But so impressions of the ads themselves went down together with the page views. It's pretty much the same line. Clicks on the advertisements, so which actually makes me earning money, I would expect, yeah, it's going down exactly the same. Another statistics, yeah, the most important, my earnings. So as you see here, I had like around about 20 euros a week income from advertisements prior to changing to the Apex application. And suddenly this is going to more or less zero. Almost zero. Sometimes small peak, strange enough. But still, it's dramatically reduced. And that was kind of a bummer for me. So I was thinking, oh, what was the cause of this? What is significantly different in my Apex application than it was using my PHP MySQL application? And my idea was, hey, there is something that's significantly different in Apex, and that's the structure of the URL, the F*P syntax. Why is it significantly different from other URLs? Because the standards used on the internet, the uniform resource locator uses a query string that is built up from parameter names. In Apex, that would be the P, and then a parameter value, and then divided with this ampersand, and then another parameter name, another parameter value. The Apex URL looks significantly different. So just let's have a look. How many parameters does the Apex URL have? Okay, there are 9 parameters divided by colons as an input for the P. But there are more. There are actually another 16 parameters that are using the standard URL syntax. But it is this part that is confusing the 9 parameters of the Apex URL divided by a colon for that single standard query URL parameter P that is confusing Google. And I thought, if I solve this, I solve my advertisement problem. Yeah, as you see here, there are lots of different pages. I can show you this statistic in analytics. Again, if I look at the one of the statistics, the behavior, in this case, the site content, all pages. So this is again January 2017. Let's make this 2018. Statistics will be a bit faster. So you'll see some of the PHP parameters, old PHP statistics. So let's have a look. And they are on top of this because they're much more unique compared to what you have in Apex. So finding an Apex URL that has been accessed a couple of times, so it's much lower down in the statistics. And this is, again, this is the same page. Page 1 is the home page. This is the agenda page again. And in Google, these are separate pages because it's only one parameter, the P, and it has a different value. So the entire string behind the P is a different value, and Google doesn't understand that these are different pages. In the statistics, I can have a look at the page title, and then everything is much more condensed. So this is not looking at the URL, but from a different perspective, the page title. So just to give you a bit more information on how Google looks at URL parameters. In the Search Console, we have a tool where you can provide information on your of the parameters in your URL. So I've got a couple of parameters set up here, which is the time zone, if you remember the Apex parameters. But if I want to add a new one, let me see, add a parameter. And let's say I want to add the P parameter. Then Google asked me, does this parameter change page content? Yes, it does, sometimes. And sometimes it doesn't. So what of these two do I have to choose? I can't, because it's actually multiple parameters in that P that is affecting the change. So I can't really tell Google what P is doing. So if you have a close look at these statistics from April to March, yeah, over this 2-year period, these are 611,000, more than 611,000 different pages that Google is recognizing, which is totally not what my application is representing my application. So I still blame Google somehow for, or the URL of Apex somehow to have influence on the statistics, and especially on not having those ad incomes anymore. Showing you this. Wouldn't it be nice to have Apex have a similar URL as the standard URL? That was my idea for quite some time now. So instead of the colon divided parameters, I would like to have something like this. So the URL, I could tell Google every aspect of what is affecting the page and whatnot. And I wrote, this is, remember, this is pre 20.1, and I wrote some PL SQL functionality to actually translate this, to enable these URLs in Apex. And I use a technique which is quite old, which existed already with mod PL SQL. It's called flexible parameter parsing. See the exclamation mark in front of the name, and I call it my procedure. I called it FF as an extension of the F procedure, and I enable all these parameters. So how does this work? I mean, just that's the bit of code I wanted to show you. You actually pass name value arrays into your procedure, and the mod PL SQL, recognizing this exclamation mark, is using this syntax to pass this to your procedure. Remember, if you want to use something like this, this is in the Apex 19.1 or 19.2, whatever you're using schema. You have to allow calls to your procedure. Let's go back. In this procedure called flow EPG include mod local. I think the name is slightly different nowadays. I have it open here. So this is packages, procedures. Functions. Oh, I have to look into functions. Oh, here. So this, you have to modify this, comment this. This is actually a function returning a couple of procedure names that you allow to be used directly through an URL. And here's my FF function, and that is basically translating a standard URL syntax into Apex syntax. I won't go into this.
Question?
Yes?
Sorry to interrupt you. We are nearly out of time, so.
Yes, I'm almost ready.
Okay, thank you.
So this still is work in progress for me. I haven't put this into production because I had some difficulties with checksums and that kind of stuff. If you want to have friendly URLs, I really recommend using Apex 20.1, which have friendly URLs implemented, which will largely increase the visibility of your Apex application for Apex tools, for Google tools. Again, the reason why I didn't implement my function yet was I was playing around with Google AdSense, and there were multiple reasons why ads weren't shown, and that had to do with responsiveness of the site. And when I put advertisements in certain regions, they wouldn't show up because they expect a certain amount of space in that region. Google actually wanted to have access to my Apex application, so have a user, a backdoor to see if there is not any inappropriate content on the site. So it wasn't really the URL itself or solely the URL. There's a lot of parameters you have to tweak to actually get your statistics good and get Google integrate well with your application. That was my presentation. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you did get some inspiration for your applications if you're going public. It's a very short version of the presentation. Last time I presented this, I made it kind of 1.5 hours, which is available online in Dutch if you want to. So, are there any questions you would like to ask?
Yeah, there were 3 questions, but 2 were already answered by you. So there's still 1 left. The last question left is, how hard is it to customize an Apex app? What kind of concern do you have before you update to a newer version of Apex?
Oh, that's a very general question. I mean, if you keep to, there are multiple aspects of upgrading Apex applications. One is the UI. If you're on Universal Theme, upgrading is easy. You only have to upgrade your Universal Theme subscription. If you customize, if you have customized templates, you always have to validate that your customized templates still work with the Universal Theme CSS, and much harder with the Universal Theme JavaScript. There's some initialization going on, and so if you customize your application, that's something you really have to test. Other than that, my experience is always be aware of the PL/SQL API that comes with Apex, and especially the JavaScript API. Make sure you use the latest API calls, and that's something you should scan your application on. So as soon as you see something is deprecated in the APIs, search your code for those deprecated functions and replace them with the recommended new API functions. And usually, if you keep that in mind, upgrading Apex applications is quite easy.
Thanks for your answer, Christian.
The question?
Yes, I hope so. So this was the last question. So if there's also any feedback, you can provide it also by using the questions panel, and we'll send it then anonymous to the presenter.